What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to episode 2 of How to Yu-Gi-Oh! The first episode we did talk about finding a playstyle of your deck, and this episode I do want to talk about deck building just in general. I'm going to walk you through the steps of finding a core, support cards, and everything like that, and explaining what they do. So let's just go ahead and jump into the video, but before you do, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You don't have to, but it does make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside when you do. Let's get into the video, guys. So when you're looking into building a deck, the most important part of actually finding your deck is going to be establishing the core. And so I'm going to use relinquished as an example for today's example. An example for today's example? Yeah, that makes sense. So we're going to talk about relinquished. I'm going to build a relinquished deck from scratch. I did have help from my chat on Twitch. And so we're actually going to just start going through it. So obviously the namesake of the deck is relinquished. And so we're going to want to talk about the relinquished archetype. So the easiest thing that masterduel has implemented for deck builders is the related cards tab. I use this no matter what. I find one card I want to build a deck around, and I will just hit related cards and see what we can do with it. And so you'll see there's a couple cards that relinquished relates around. And so establishing the core of relinquished is reading relinquished himself. So what relinquished does is you can ritual summon this card, but then target a monster your opponent controls and equip that target to this card. This card attacks and defense become equal to that equipped monster's. If this card would be destroyed by battle, you can destroy the equipped monster instead. So what the game plan of relinquished is seeming to be is setting up monsters on your opponent's side of the field and then just taking them with relinquished. And you'll find that a ton of relinquished cards will actually benefit that strategies. Millennium Eyes Illusionist, for example, is a hand trap version of relinquished, basically. So when this card's discarded, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls and equip it to it and everything like that. And when a relinquished monster is special summoned to your side of the field, you can recycle this card from your graveyard back to your hand. So obviously, Millennium Eyes Illusionist is basically just a better version of relinquished, just a hand trap version. So 3 of this card is super, super good, obviously, in this deck. And then you'll find that there's other cards as well, like Illusionist Faceless Magician. When you're wanting to build the core, in-archetype cards are going to be the first ones. However, Relinquished is a different kind of example here just because Illusionist Faceless Magician isn't super good. I say good in air quotes only because it does benefit the strategy of the deck, but it special summons itself, and it doesn't revolve around having relinquished on your field and benefiting your relinquished. So it special summons itself, and that's not very good in the way just for having a relinquished not being controlled by battle or card effect, when there's many other ways we can revolve around him being destroyed and stuff like that. One card to take note is Golden Eyes Idol. So this is a quick effect card as well. You can look at your opponent's hand. Right there, I could just end the text there, but it does have plenty of other effects. Looking at your opponent's hand is super, super crazy good. And so I feel like running one copy of Golden Eyes Idol is going to be viable to this deck. And now, looking at spell cards, there are 2 spells. Black Illusion Ritual. This relinquished is a ritual monster, so obviously it's going to need a spell. And so things like that, we're going to need 3 of those without a doubt. Relinquished Fusion. By far the best monster in this deck is Millennium Eyes Restrict. This is the new fusion. I say new. This is a newer relinquished card. So once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can target a monster on the field and destroy it. So that's just in general when your opponent activates a monster effect, and it's a quick effect. So you can do it on your opponent's turn. So without a doubt, this is the best monster in our deck. This is what's going to fuel our strategy. And so we'll run 3 of it. And also, to get it out, we'll use Relinquished Fusion. Three copies of that. And so, I would say that this is the core to a Relinquished deck. However, you can see we only have 13 cards in this deck. So now, once you've established the core of your deck, you need the support. Support for your core is going to be really, really valuable in building a deck. So, taking a look at what we have, we don't have too many monsters. And we do have a ritual monster, though. So looking at ritual monsters, they have had a lot of support over the years. And so one of the best ritual support cards is going to be Pre-Preparation of Rites. So looking at this card, add one ritual spell from your deck to your hand, and add a ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, whose name is listed on that spell. So this is literally a +2. I'm sorry, it's a +1 because we have to use the pre-prep, but it does add the namesake of the deck into our hand with one card. So pre-prep is going to be a super, super important card. I'm streaming. Okay. And so pre-prep is on here, and just like that, we do have more cards in the deck to run. Now, low on monster count is our next obstacle. So a lot of cards are going to be very weak. We do have 0 attack monsters all across the board. And so, building that out, what can we do to get over big monsters on our opponent's turn? So the next thing, the best way to get over big monsters is kaijus. It's untargetable destruction, and it's super, super easy. So kaijus are going to be, I would say, the powerhouse of our deck, our big boss monster, and also an alternative win condition. When you're building a deck, you want to think about win conditions as well, because Relinquished can steal monsters, it can have a ton of control, but you really rely on your opponent's monsters being strong enough to defeat your opponent. So having alternate win conditions is going to be super important as well. And so the Kaiju engine is very, very simple. It is just 3 interrupted Kaiju Slumber, and then any Kaiju monsters that you feel like you could run. So we do want some really, really strong Kaijus, because Kaiju Slumber will destroy as many monsters on the field as possible, and then special summon 2 Kaiju monsters, 1 to your field, 1 to your opponent's. So with that being said, we do want really strong monsters to summon on our field and really weak Kaiju monsters to summon on our opponent's field. So, for instance, the 2 highest attack Kaijus are Jizukiryu and Thunder King. And then a lot of the weaker ones is going to be Godarla and Radian. You could run a Gamma-Seal as well, but also I feel like Radian is dark monsters, so it's going to be really helpful with our synergy of our deck. And Godarla is just a really, really weak one that we could run. That we can easily get over, I should say. And then next, okay, taking a look at our deck at the moment, we are still fairly low on monsters. We do have a second win condition in the control aspect, but we also need a starter card. A starter card is what you're going to need to really, well, obviously, it's just to start your combos, to start your plays. So pre-prep is a starter card because it will add us a relinquished card, and everything else is kind of control here. So a good starter card for a dark archetype deck is going to be Tour Guide. Tour Guide is a very, very special card. She's been on and off the ban list in the real world TCG for a very long time, and so Tour Guide is a very, very good card, and we're going to be running it at 3, because a starter card you do want to see at 3 so you can kickstart your plays. And the card that works really well with Tour Guide is Sangan. Sangan got an errata because it was so good, and if you watch the progression series with Simo and everything like that, you know that Sangan is super popular. So obviously we're going to run 1 Sangan, and what Sangan allows us to do, the reason why we chose Sangan over any other level 3 Fiend, is because it lets us search any of our relinquished cards and adds them to our hands. So yeah. So that is shaping up to be a fairly good card. We went from having 13 cards to 27. And so the next card I want to think about running is another monster card called Jester Confeet. Jester Confeet. So the support cards in this deck are super, super powerful, and you might be thinking, well, I already know what all these cards can do, and so it's really easy for me to make a deck. But you have to think, I combed through the Master Duel card pool before I shot this video to really try to sum it up. But 3 Jester Confeet is going to be very good in this deck, only because Jester Confeet is kind of a stall card. You can only control 1, and you can special summon this card in attack position. If special summoned this way, during your opponent's next end phase, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, return both that target and this face-up card to the hand. So this is very good as a stall card, but also you can special summon this card from your hand in attack position. This is just a free monster, and so we're able to link climb with it. We are able to just have another body on board in order to make plays. So District Convy is just a +1 on the field, and also it's some interruption, so it would work really well with this deck. And it's also a level 1. And so 30 cards. We need 10 more cards. So we have a core, and we have some support cards as well. So what do we need next to either have another win condition or make the deck consistent? So consistency in decks is super, super powerful, and it's probably the most important part of the deck aside from core. And the easiest way to add consistency to the deck is draw power. And so looking at our monsters, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have 14 dark monsters in this deck. So draw power wise, I feel like Allure of Darkness would be the best option for draw power in this deck. However, there are plenty of other pot cards that are super stable to a lot of decks, and if you are low on SR crafting points or anything like that, you could run a Desires, you could run an Extravagance or a Prosperity, and they are very good in other decks as well. But for max consistency in this deck, I feel like Allure of Darkness would be your best option. And that leaves us with 7 more cards in the deck. So we focused a lot on control, and we focused a lot on alternate win conditions, so we could do one more. An alternate win condition we could have would be Super Polymerization. This adds into the control aspect of the deck as well, and also it gives us a big boss monster to use from our extra deck to possibly win the game. So 2 copies of Super Polymerization are going to be super pivotal in this deck. And also, one other card, Magicalized Fusion. I'll get into while we're running this card a little later. You're probably wondering, you're running 3 copies of Relinquished Fusion, you don't need another one, but there is parts of the deck where you could draw this card and you don't want it and you need it in the deck, so having another copy of it would be very, very nice. So this is essentially just a 4th copy of Relinquished Fusion. And then the last 3 cards of the... I'm sorry, we have 4 more cards. We do have another consistency card. When looking at Millennium Eyes Illusionist, this card procs from the graveyard. So if Eyes Restrict or Relinquished is special summoned, add this card from the graveyard to your hand. Now, this could be very, very nice. We do run 3 copies of this card. And we want this card in the graveyard so that we can proc it whenever we summon a Relinquished. So the best card to get any card into the graveyard is Foolish Burial. And this is just obviously to thin the deck as well. This is another form of almost drawing, where it thins the deck so you know you can't draw that card. So Foolish Burial is a very, very good staple card in a lot of decks that revolve around the graveyard, and it's also just super, super consistent. And then for the last 3 cards of the deck, this is where I want to talk about... actually, I need one more card. Looking over at my deck list here, so I know not to miss anything. I have missed one thing, which also revolves around our boss monster as well, to try and go through with our win condition with Millennium Eyes Restrict. It is Instant Fusion. This is just a free special 3 fusion summon with no repercussions whatsoever. And so talking about the last 2 cards in the deck are staples. Decks are very, very interesting in the amount of staples they can run. Decks like Sky Strikers can run like 15 or 12 staple cards in the deck because they have a very, very low core. And so with this deck, I wanted to focus more on the support and the core just to kind of hammer in the ability to build the deck around it. Now, you're probably wondering why this deck is missing so many hand traps. It's also just not super meta, I would say. It's a very good deck. It can get stuff done, but against an Eldritch deck like that, it will struggle. And so you could possibly cut the Kaiju Engine for hand traps, but also you would be losing out on a win condition for more control. So I just think staples are very important. And there's 2 cards that the game gives you for free, which are very, very good staple cards. It is Lightning Storm and Solemn... I can't spell. It is Solemn Judgment. And that would complete a 40-card deck. We could craft this right now and go into a duel and have some fun with it. But we are missing the extra deck. And the extra deck is really where I try and hammer home a second win condition. So with Millennium Eyes Restrict, I feel like you could run... oh, sorry. Oh, my God. We can run a 1 copy of Thousand Eyes Restrict just because he's a little bit of a lesser form of Millennium Eyes, and we are running Instant Fusion to get him out easily. Now, a second Instant Fusion target, probably the best Instant Fusion target, I would say, is Mud Dragon of the Swamp. This card is a card that can change its attribute and then everything like that. So cards with the same attribute of this card cannot activate their card effect. So this is a 1-turn kind of skill drain, kind of a effect veiler version of a card that you can just use with your Instant Fusion, and also it puts a monster on the field to only climb with. So Mud Dragon of the Swamp is just a 1 of Instant Fusion target. And for Super Polymerization, probably the best Super Poly target in a Dark deck is going to be Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. This card is a monster. Literally, it's a monster card. But, yeah, this card is super good against mirror matches with Dark decks, and it is the best Super Poly target. So we're going to run 1 target of that. And that really makes our Super Poly live, and it gives us an alternate win condition. Now, looking at our fusion cards, a lot of fusion decks revolve around a new card that has kind of sparked a lot of controversy, that people are saying it should be banned in the TCG and everything like that. But the reason we run Magicalized Fusion as well is because we are going to be running 1 copy of Predaplant, Verte, Anaconda. This allows us to use Relinquished Fusion or Magicalized Fusion from the deck to get a Millennium Eyes Restrict whenever we need it. And it's just a super consistent card, and it revolves around a lot of easy combos to use in the TCG and in Master Duel. And then going into our next cards, our Link monsters. Link Haribo. If you run a ton of level 1 monsters, honestly, I feel like Link Haribo is just a given. This card is very good. It keeps you safe, and it keeps your other monsters safe whenever you need them, and everything like that. So we do have a Nightmare package, which is just another staple extra deck. Phoenix and Unicorn could be put in almost every deck and used for disruption on your opponent's turn. Now, I've talked about Access Code Talker in every single one of my deck profiles on YouTube. This card is a win condition all in itself, which gives us a 3rd win condition, which is absolutely what we're wanting in this deck. And the cards to get this out, we do run a lot of Spellcaster monsters, so Selene is a very good Access Code Talker package. And then going into that, we do have 1 more Link monster that probably should have been brought up earlier, but it does work. We do have Relinquished Anima. So this card does also, it's just a quick steal. It's just like a quick little jab. Like you can kaiju one of your opponent's monsters and then just kind of take them back really quickly. And so Relinquished Anima is just a very good 1 of. However, our deck basically does what this card does all in all, so you don't need to run more than 1. And then the next 2 cards are going to be Embodiment of Crime and Embodiment of Punishment. These are just kind of fun cards that I like to think. They both do the same thing. So once per turn, during the player's turn, you can detach 1 Exceeds material from this card, change all monsters your opponent controls to attack position, and they have to attack this card. Now, this card can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from attacks on this card. So these cards are pretty cheeky. They are pretty good. They both do the same thing. And say you have a kaiju on the field, your opponent has to attack it, and they're going to take the damage. So yeah, that would be the best way to. That is my process of building a deck, I should say. The biggest things I want to you to take from this video is establishing a core, building support around your core, and thinking about your win conditions. What is your deck's ability to win, and how can you access it, and what can you do for like alternative win conditions? Access code, like I said, if you don't have access code, definitely craft it. This card is a win condition in itself, and everything like that. So yeah. So basically, that's what I want you guys to think about. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.